Hey now, welcome back Pokemon trainers. This is your friendly neighborhood Bulldogs, and today we are at the Kansas City Trading Card Game Regionals in 2014. This is round 8, the final round of Swiss, on Saturday evening. On your left we have Sarah Beckwith playing Fairy Box, and on your right we have Brandon Cantu playing Blastoise, Keldeo, Black Hero. They've already flipped to decide who's going first and going to draw their opening hands. Uh, for those of you that don't know, Brandon's deck is focused on getting up Blastoise that has Deluge ability, which allows him to attach as often as he likes one water energy to any one of his Pokemon. That'll be used to set up Black Kyurem, which deals 200 damage for 4 energy, discarding 3 of them. Sarah, on the other hand, will be focusing on setting up one Aromatisse that will allow her to move her energies around and very specifically target her opponent for prizes. Looks like they're all set up, ready to go. They've flipped to decide who goes first, and now they're just, sounds like they're waiting to see who's supposed to go. Start them. They've started time. Tell them they've started time. Yeah. So it looks like Sarah starts with a Mr. Mime on her bench and a, what is that? Landorus EX active. Landorus does 30 for 1 energy, does 30 damage to an active and 30 damage to a bench. Brendan started with the perfect counter to that. A Suicune active, which prevents all damage from Pokemon EX, and a Squirtle benched that prevents all damage done to itself as long as it is benched. Sarah starts by attaching what looks like a Prism Energy to her active Landorus and plays down a Fairy Garden, which will allow her to retreat her Pokemon for free as long as it has a Fairy Energy attached. And Prism acts as a Fairy Energy, so she's going to retreat into her Mr. Mime to make sure that her opponent cannot take 2 easy prizes. With that, she ends her turn. Now over to Brandon's turn. It looks like he starts with a Skyla, probably to get a Beach that he's going to replace that Fairy Garden with. Beach is a card that is exclusive to Pokemon World Championship competitors and staff, and it allows you to, once during your turn, draw until your hand size equals 7, but if you do that, your turn ends. Brandon then plays an Ultra Ball, discarding Catcher and a Tool Scrapper, and he's going to search his deck for any one Pokemon that he likes. Searches for a Squirtle, which is the same move I would have made. It's always a good idea to end your turn with multiple Squirtles out, just in case your opponent somehow gets the ability to knock out one of the ones on your bench. Then he's just going to Beach to draw what looked like 5 cards. We're over to Sarah's turn. Remember, she didn't play a supporter during her turn, so she's going to play that Fairy Garden, getting rid of the Beach and allowing her to start retreating for free again. She's also going to attach a Prism to her active Mr. Mime, probably to make it so that it has the ability to retreat. And now she's holding her hand. She probably has a Juniper in hand and she really doesn't want to play it, because more than likely she's got something in her hand that will make it that she doesn't want to get rid of. She does play a Catcher to bring up a Squirtle. Then she'll play a Colress, which allows her to shuffle her hand into her deck and draw a number of cards equal to the number of total benched Pokemon in play. She was really hoping that Brandon would bench more Pokemon during his turn. However, he didn't, and she'll only get 3 cards off of that. She really needs to get a Spritzee into play, because Spritzee evolves into Aromatisse, which is the basis for her entire strategy. Draws 3 cards, and I can't really see what's in her hand, but there's the Spritzee, which means that she might be able to get Aromatisse into play next turn. Then she's going to retreat Mr. Mime for free into Landorus, play a laser to poison her opponent, flip a coin to see whether or not it's asleep. And it looks like the coin flip was tails, but she still does poison to her opponent. And she's going to deal 30 damage to the active, but nothing to either of the benched Pokemon because they're both protected by their abilities. And Brandon is explaining that to her right now. So now we go back to Brandon's turn. He draws his card, benches a Squirtle, gets another Beach into play. Welcome back to Stadium Wars, people. Haven't had this for a really long time. He plays a Juniper, which he needed to draw cards, but at the expense of at least, what looked like at least 2 superior energy retrievals. He's not going to have a lot of fun with that. Benches a Keldeo, and he looks like he's thinking about benching another one, but is probably going to decide against it because he really needs that last bench space to go to his Black Kyurem. Black Kyurem, like I said, is the one card that has one-shot potential in his deck. While Keldeo does have that one-shot potential, it takes a lot of energies to do that. He ended up playing the Keldeo so that he could draw an additional card off of his Beach. He uses Beach to draw what looked like 2 cards and ended his turn. Now, Sarah drew her card, played a Muscle Band onto her active Landorus, and then played an end to shuffle both players' hands into their decks, draw a number of cards equal to their prizes. In this case, both players will end up drawing 6 cards. The Landorus will now be doing 50 damage to the active Pokemon and 30 damage to any one bench that Sarah chooses. However, Sarah still needs to get her Aromatisse into play. That way she can get that one Prism energy off of the Mr. Mime and onto something where it might be able to actually do some good. Sarah also benches a Suicune, which in these 2 matchups, Suicune can really turn the matchup in your favor. Like I said, Suicune prevents all damage from attacks by EXs done to that Pokemon. And considering that both of these decks are very big Pokemon EX, rely very heavily on Pokemon EX, it makes it a great idea to get those things out there. Level Ball allows her to search for any one Pokemon with 90 HP or less, and she's going to search out her 90 HP Aromatisse and evolve it. This now allows her to move her energies wherever she needs to. She's probably going to move that one Prism energy off of Mr. Mime and onto the Suicune on her bench. She no longer has a Fairy Garden in place, so that Landorus is still stuck up there. However, she's going to put all of her energies onto her active Landorus, and probably going to use Land Crush. She's going to discard the 2 energies to deal 180 damage, knocking out the Keldeo. So the attack is 80 plus 80 damage if you discard all the fighting energies. So it would normally do 160, but Sarah had attached a Muscle Band to her Landorus, which allowed her to deal the extra 20 damage, which is enough to knock out the Keldeo. Brandon starts his turn by benching a Black Kyurem, which is really the main attacker of his deck. Then he plays an N to get himself more cards and really to get cards out of Sarah's hand. So Brandon will now draw 6, and Sarah will draw 4. Sarah still has a bit of an advantage, but she's really behind on her energies at this point. Because she's playing basic energies, I think she's trying to get a Geomancy Xerneas into play, and that will allow her to search her deck for 3 basic fairy energies and attach them to 3 different Pokemon on her bench. Brandon just ended his turn by using a Tropical Beach for 1, and Sarah looks like she has some decision making that she needs to do. I'm not sure what's in her hand completely. I see that there's a Prism energy in her hand. There's a Dowsing Machine, discarding a Juniper, and what's that, a Switch? No, that was a Super Rod to get back her Fairy Garden, which will allow her to retreat for free. I'm going to attach a Prism to her benched Suicune, and then play Juniper to draw a new hand of 7. I believe that Juniper was the last card in her hand, so she didn't discard anything extra by playing it. I can't see what else is in her hand, unfortunately. However, it's more than likely that she's going to switch the 2 energies. She's going to just retreat for free into Mr. Mime, Suicune, so that she can protect her energy investment. She's going to move the Prism back to Landorus, making it a bigger target, but also protecting it just in case Brandon can attach a lot of energies to that Suicune quickly. Brandon starts his turn by playing a Skyla for a rare candy, which I'm pretty certain he's got a Blastoise in his hand, and he evolves the undamaged Squirtle. He's then going to deluge 3 energies onto his active Suicune. Suicune's attack, I believe it's a Roller Wave, will deal 70 damage to Sarah's Suicune, but it's not enough to knock it out. Sarah now needs to find 1 non-EX Pokemon that she can use to attack that Suicune. If she can't, she's going to be in for a very long day. However, that Max Potion removed all the damage on the Suicune. Max Potion allows you to remove all damage on one of your Pokemon at the cost of discarding all of the energies on it. However, you don't have to have an energy on the Pokemon that you're removing damage from in order to remove the damage. So she can remove that 70 damage basically for free. She attaches a basic Fairy Energy to her benched Eviltal. She plays a Skyla, searching her deck for hopefully something that'll get that Suicune out of the active position, because that Suicune is really a bad card for her to see. I don't know if she runs Genesect and Plasma Energy in the deck, though I would be surprised if she didn't. Genesect is really, in my experience, the heart and soul of a good Plasma Fairies deck, or a good Fairies deck in general. Genesect, while it does cost a lot, using it with Plasma Energy means that you basically have a Pokemon catcher anytime you need it. Plus, Genesect's attacks really are not that bad. You know, I mean, it's 3 for 100, Snipe for 20, and you can G-Booster it, which is an A-Spec. You can attach it to Genesect and gives it an attack that makes it discard 2 energy cards attached to it, deal 200 damage. Go back to Brandon's turn, and he didn't have very much. He didn't even play a card, and he just used his Beach. Or at least that's what it looked like to me. Go back to Sarah's turn, and she's still hunting for energies, more than likely. She's using a Skyla to try and find a Fairy Garden, which again will allow her to retreat for free. She still needs to find a non-EX attacker that can deal decent damage to that active Suicune, because right now that Suicune is really bad business for her. Again, that Suicune blocks all of her Pokemon EX's attacks, and Fairy Box tends to play a lot of Pokemon EX. Sarah's just going to end her turn with that Suicune active, and we run into Brandon's turn. Brandon plays his 4th Beach. He plays 4 Beaches in that Blastoise deck. Haven't seen that happen too often. Brandon then plays a Professor Letter to get 2 water energy, a water and an electric out of his deck. Professor Letter lets you search your deck for 2 basic energies, any type that you like. And he decided on an electric and a water. Probably the electric is going on to the black Kyurem, and the water, I don't know if he's going to hold on to it or if he's just going to deluge that onto the black Kyurem. He decides to deluge it to the Keldeo on the far side of his bench, and then he attacks with Suicune for 70 damage. Run back to Sarah's turn, and I think she just saw her Xerneas. That's a card she's been looking for a really long time. Unfortunately, she can't retreat now because she's probably played all 3 of her Fairy Gardens. Or at least I've seen 3 Fairy Gardens come down. If she plays the 4th, I would be surprised. Instead, she plays a Pokemon Catcher, probably to bring up the Keldeo. However, that Keldeo, she can't really do anything against it. Unless she's trying to get the Blastoise to stop Brandon from using his Deluge. However, it looked like the catcher failed, and Sarah is back to scrambling to try and find stuff. Going to use a Max Potion to get the damage off of her active Suicune, and sends it back to Brandon. Draws his card, plays nothing, and just hits for 70. Back to Sarah's turn. She's still looking for her Xerneas. It's a card that attacks for 100. You have to discard an energy in order to use its attack, but it will knock out the Suicune that's currently active. And that's really all that Sarah needs at this point. Granted, Brandon probably has something left in his deck. However, Sarah has missed many energy drops at this point in the game. She's going to play a Hypnotoxic Laser, puts the Suicune to sleep, poisons it, and that poison will deal 10 damage. Sarah's just trying to figure out if there's anything else she can do during her turn. Going to play an Ultra Ball, discarding a Spritzy and an N. I'm still thinking she needs to find a Xerneas, but she searches out another Pokemon X, Palkia EX. Palkia has really come on strong lately in the format. Its attack does 3 for only 50 damage, but it allows it to strafe, get out of the way. When you attack with it, you may move Palkia back to your bench. Sarah then plays a Juniper. I believe she didn't discard anything off of that. Max Potions her active Suicune again. Drops a Muscle Band. Hopefully has a Prism Energy in her hand because she kind of desperately needs that. There's a Prism up active, a Fairy up active, a Fairy up active. She's going to hit for 90 with the Poison, knocks out the active Suicune. Brandon is now in a bit of trouble. He has to sends up his Keldeo, but Keldeo isn't going to be able to attack for very much damage. He's going to need to either power up the Blastoise or find another non-EX attacker to attack the Suicune. He opts for powering up Blastoise, which is a move that will get all of Sarah's energy off of the board. Sarah has not attached an energy for like 4 or 5 turns at this point. And Fairy Box is a deck that really needs to have those energies in play rather than in the deck or in the discard pile. A lot of other decks that, can sort of afford to miss those energy drops, but Fairy Box really can't. Brandon just played an N, which shuffled his hand back into his deck to draw 6, and forced Sarah back down into a 3-card hand. No, 4-card hand. No, it's a 3-card hand. My apologies. Brandon's going to retreat his active Keldeo for 2. into his Blastoise that has 4 energies attached. He's going to use Hydro Pump for 100 damage, knocking out the Suicune. Hydro Pump does 60 damage plus 10 additional damage for each water energy attached to Blastoise. Sarah is back in another tight spot, unfortunately for her. She sends up the Mr. Mime, and again, she has no energies in play. She really needs to get energies onto the Eviltal that's on her bench, because that Eviltal is probably the only thing that she has that can pose a serious threat at this point in the game. She just attached a Rainbow Energy to her benched Aromatisse. And if I were her, I would try and move that energy, just in case. She's going to end her turn by using Beach to draw 4 cards. Brandon's turn, draws his card. And he's going to start trying to look for ways to attack with things other than Blastoise. He really cannot allow that Blastoise to sit up there any longer. He needs to have Deluge on his bench. He just played a Professor Letter to get what is probably his final water energy out of the deck. He'll then play a Pokemon Catcher to bring up the Aromatisse, getting rid of the only energy that Sarah has in play. And again, she's now in a really, really tight spot. She now no longer has her Energy Searchers. She's discarded her other Spritzy, and I believe she's gotten rid of her Super Rod, which would allow her to get back the Aromatisse pieces. So it's now Sarah's turn, and she has to decide who she's going to send up. She's going to send up the Mr. Mime because none of Brandon's attackers really attack the bench. And Mr. Mime's only truly good against bench attackers. Sarah's going to play a Level Ball to try and find a Spritzy, but I'm pretty certain that that all of her Spritzies are already discarded. She fails the Level Ball because there are no more Spritzies left in the deck, and now she knows she has to play very conservatively with her resources. She's going to bench another Suicune and drop... What is that? Is that a Muscle Band that she just put on Eviltal? She'll play an Ultra Ball to largely get rid of cards from her hand, but she's also going to try and see if she can find her Xerneas. Xerneas' first attack costs 1 Fairy Energy and lets her choose three of her own bench Pokemon, search her deck for Fairy Energies, and attach 1 to each of them. At this point, it's very likely Sarah is just going to use Beach to draw what looks like 4 cards into her hand. Unless she has another card she wants to play during her turn. Yeah, she's just going to Beach for 4, probably. Oh, 5. She only had 2 cards in her hand. Back to Brandon's turn, and Brandon, again, still needs to get that Blastoise out of the active position. He deluges a Water Energy to his benched Kyurem. Now he's counting his deck to see how many turns he has and how many cards he can afford to draw. He's going to play a Level Ball. Probably going to see if there's a Wartortle in there. If there isn't, he'll take the last Squirtle. He won't take the last Squirtle. Going to play an N. Puts both of their hands down by a lot. Sarah should only have 3 cards in her hand after this, while Brandon should have 4. Because N draws the number of prize cards that each player has. Once again, Sarah still needs to get energies into play. At this point, it doesn't look like she has any energies out there. Brandon just decides to use Hydro Pump, knock out the Mr. Mime, and Sarah promotes her Xerneas. I'm pretty certain that Sarah doesn't have any more basic fairy energies in her deck, but she attaches a, what's that, a rainbow or a prism to her active Pokemon. That will allow her to use Geomancy, but she's now just played a Skyla looking through her deck and realizing that there probably isn't that much fairy energy left in here. Brandon asks to take a look at her discard pile. Well, Sarah takes an N that she's going to save for next turn. Since she knows she's now out of basic fairy energies, she probably can't use Geomancy anymore. She's going to use it, what's that, to find one fairy energy and attach it to the benched Eviltal. That benched Eviltal now becomes a very major threat to Brandon because he has a lot of energy on the board, and Eviltal doesn't attack for a lot, but it attacks for enough to one-shot his only Blastoise in play. However, since Brandon just rare candied up a second Blastoise, I don't think he has to worry too much about it. Brandon evolves to Blastoise, and looks like he has some decisions that he needs to make. I think he's thinking about using Russian, maybe finding another 2 energies out of his discard pile to try and attach there. That'll deal 130 damage. However, attaching 4 energies to Keldeo means that Eviltal with just 1 more energy, she just needs to find a rainbow or a prism, would deal 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16. Just short of a knockout. However, he just attacks the Xerneas for 100 damage. Sarah probably doesn't really care that much about that because she doesn't mind if that Xerneas gets knocked out. She's going to play an N to try and find either a rainbow or a prism that she can attach to her benched Eviltal EX, the one with the energy and the muscle band attached to it. If she can do that, she'll get rid of a lot of energies. However, I'm pretty certain that Brandon is also kind of stuck at this point. I'm not sure how many superior energy retrievals he's got left in his deck. At most, I think he has 1, if he has that many at all. I think that he's pretty much tapped out of energy, and if Sarah just brings up that Eviltal and attacks, there's a pretty decent possibility that Brandon does not have the cards needed for the return knockout with either Keldeo or Black Kyurem. By splitting up his energies like that, Brandon pretty much assured himself that he would not be able to use Black Kyurem unless he draws something amazing off of his prize cards. Now Sarah's turn to send up one of her Pokemon. Brandon just knocked out her Xerneas with Hydro Pump, but Sarah already has enough energies on her to knock out the Blastoise. Brandon, with no hesitation, brings up Black Kyurem, which probably means that he has the superior energy retrieval, which will bring him the game. He'll search his discard pile for 4 water energies, deluge 2 of them to his active, deluge all 4 of them to his active, and use Black Ballista for 200 damage, taking his final 2 prizes and winning game 1. So now Brandon has won game 1. He's up 1 game to none, and there are about 31 minutes remaining in this match, roughly. Sarah now has the choice of who goes first in game 2 before they both draw their opening hands. They're going to shuffle up their decks, set up, and before that happens, Sarah's going to decide who's going first. More than likely, she's going to go first. Going first in this format with these rules is a huge advantage. It basically means that Sarah can, Sarah has first dibs on energy attachment, first chance to evolve. really, really a good idea. Even though you can no longer attack on your first turn, going first is still preferable. I'm really hoping Brandon shuffles his deck a little bit more after that. So now we come back to start game two. Brandon starts with 2 Pokemon, and it looks like Sarah's only starting with 1. But again, she has first chance to attach her energies and do all the things she needs to. She starts with a Spiritomb. Spiritomb is really a card that's used for very specific situations. It's there to stop people from using their A specs. Unfortunately for Sarah, Brandon's deck generally does not require A specs in order to work effectively. It's a nice bonus to have, but it's not everything about his deck. Sarah then attaches a Rainbow Energy to her benched Eviltal and ends her turn. Also notice that she played her Fairy Garden very early. I probably would have avoided playing that until a little later in the game, because you know that Brandon is playing 4 beaches. You've seen all 4 beaches earlier in the game. Brandon starts with 2 Squirtles, attaches a Water Energy to the active, and just uses that beach. Sarah again comes back, plays a Fairy Garden. The problem is that she's still behind on the Stadium Exchange. Because she only plays the 3 Fairy Gardens, or at least I've only seen her play the 3 Fairy Gardens, Brandon will pretty much always end up winning that particular Stadium War. Sarah attaches a Fairy Energy to her benched Eviltal and plays a Skyla, probably looking for a level ball to get her Spritzy out. She can get Spritzy out. She plays Skyla for a Juniper instead. I was going to say, if she gets the Spritzy out, then she'll be able to evolve on her next turn. But apparently she didn't have another supporter in her hand. She's just going to search out the Juniper and hope that she can draw into something off of the Juniper that she's going to play during her next turn. Go back to Brandon's turn now. He's going to play down a Black Kyurem EX. And a Tropical Beach, once again, proving the Stadium Wars. Professor Letter to get out a couple of energies, a Water and an Electric, and he should probably be attaching that 1 Electric to his benched Black Kyurem. That Black Kyurem requires 1 Electric, 2 Waters, and 1 Colorless in order to use Black Ballista. Black Ballista does 200 damage, discards 3 energies off of itself. Benches a what we've been calling Baby Black Kyurem, so that he can counter the Suicune that he already knows Sarah plays. It's also going to Ultra Ball and Rare Candy into Blastoise which now means that he can attach his energies wherever and whenever he wants. He's debating about that electric energy, and finally he decides to attach it to the Black Kyurem EX. He was thinking about attaching it to the regular Black Kyurem because I'm pretty certain that that Spiritomb has 80 HP, which means that Black Kyurem EX's Slash would not deal enough damage to knock it out. However, he played his cards right. He got a catcher, which brings up the Yveltal. Probably has 3 water energies in his hand. He has a superior energy retrieval. He's going to discard a Squirtle and a rare candy, because he figures at this point he's got this game pretty much in the bag. Got 2 water energies out of the discard pile. Probably has 1 more in his hand. Deluge, Deluge, Deluge. Deluge. All of them to the active. Discards 3 energies and knocks out the Yveltal EX. Sarah sends up her last Pokemon, her Spiritomb. Draws her card. This... It's not unwinnable what she's in right now, but she really needs to work hard. Plays a Juniper, discarding a Rainbow Energy and some other stuff. I couldn't see what else was in there. She draws a hand that includes a Muscle Band, and she's hoping to see a basic Pokemon. She sees a Suicune. And that Suicune is a huge help because with all of Black Kyurem's power and ability, it cannot knock out that Suicune. Suicune is protected from all attacks from Pokemon EX. Sarah is looking to see what she can pull back out of her discard pile for the Super Rod she just played, getting back an Yveltal and a Fairy Energy. She's going to see if she can attach another energy during her turn. She needs to attach an energy. And she also needs to get a Spritzy out into play. She has not seen a Spritzy yet this game, and it's like 3 or 4 turns in. Instead, she's just going to Beach for 3, it looks like. And we go back to Brandon's turn. Brandon played Superior Energy Retreat. Oh no, that was a Dowsing Machine to get back a Professor Letter. That will bring back 2 water energies out of his deck. And he'll probably attach those to his active Black Kyurem and discard 3 energies to take 1 prize. It's not a favorable exchange for Brandon, but he does get a knockout and he does get another prize. And he probably still has his, at least some of his superior energy retrievals left in the deck. He's going to deluge 1 to the active, 1 to the bench, then play an N, maybe hoping for a switch, maybe hoping for a superior energy retrieval, because he needs to get that benched Black Kyurem EX active. It is a more efficient attacker, and he would really prefer to be attacking with that at this point, because that Suicune doesn't have any damage on it. Looks like Brandon didn't get what he needed, so he's just going to slash for 60. Sarah starts her turn. She's been given a 1-turn reprieve. Let's see what she can do with it. She benches an Yveltal and a Landorus, plays a level ball to find her Spritzy, which she will also bench. I don't really know why she's mentioning that Landorus, though. With all of the bench protection and the fact that Brandon's deck does so much damage so quickly, I don't see how dealing 30-30 would help Sarah out all that much. doesn't really make the math any better for any of her attackers. She's just going to attach a Fairy Energy to her benched Suicune. She's thinking about a supporter play, probably. That's an N, which means Sarah will shuffle in, draw 6. Brandon will shuffle in and draw 4. And Sarah might be looking for an Aromatisse. I don't know what else she has in her deck that she might be looking for, though. It looks like it's just straight Yveltal and Hammerhead Landorus. But, you know, she hasn't really shown off all that much that's in the deck. Or at least I don't feel that way. She's going to want to see if she can play another basic down this turn. Maybe she'll end up using using Brandon's Beach to draw some more cards. She plays a Max Potion to try and buy herself one more turn. And she drops a Muscle Band on the Landorus, which I don't really understand it all that much. And then she's going to Beach for, looks like, 4. Brandon starts his turn by playing Skyla. He's thinking about Juniper. He thought about Juniper for a second, but he's probably going to be going for the Superior Energy Retrieval. Oh, going for Juniper again. That Juniper can't be used this turn, but he'll be able to use it next turn. Unless Sarah has another N in her hand that'll get rid of it. But either way, Brandon gets to get cards out of his deck that aren't going to be much of a help to him. He's then going to play an Ultra Ball, discarding an Ultra Ball and a Skyla. He's looking for Keldeo, because Keldeo can rush in and retreat for only 2. It also attacks 3 for 110, which will knock out the Spiritomb. However, Brandon doesn't have any cards left in his hand, so he's going to Beach for either 5 or 6. And Sarah starts her turn by getting the Aromatisse into play. She really needed to get that thing in there. That allows her to move her Fairy Energies pretty much wherever she wants. That includes her Prisms, though she has to be careful where she moves the Prism. Once she moves it to Aromatisse, it can never come off of there. It's stuck on Aromatisse for the rest of the game. She then plays an Ultra Ball, discarding a Level and a Tool Scrapper, because Tool Scrapper doesn't matter in this matchup, and she has everything out she needs at this point. She's going to search out the Palkia, which is an interesting move. It'll only hit for 140 at this point. Maybe that's why she's been working so hard at getting that Hammerhead in play. Her strategy here seems to be to Hammerhead, put 30 damage on all of the dragons, and then Palkia Strafe to knock them out. However, that can be a risky strategy, because, as we saw, that Tool Scrapper just got rid of 2 Muscle Bands. Brandon's also going to play Professor's Letter to get 1 Water Energy out of his deck. He might have been thinking he had 2, but he only had 1. He's going to try and attach that to his Keldeo more than likely. No, he attaches it to Black Ballista. Attaches another one to the bench, Keldeo. This is all using Deluge, and I believe he's announcing all of them when he's using them. He's going to play an End. Both players shuffle their hand into their decks and draw a number of cards equal to their prizes. Brandon will draw 4 prizes, and Sarah will draw 4 cards, and Sarah will draw 6. Sarah really needs to start knocking things out, doing damage. She can't be spending all this time just setting up. We're down to less than 15 minutes in the match, and if she wants to try and get into the top 8, she really needs to get a win. this match isn't quite win and you're in. It's more like win and you have a shot at getting in. Brandon decides to use Black Ballista to knock out the Spiritomb, discarding the electric energy. And Sarah now gets to send up one of her benched Pokemon. She's going to push the Landorus. And he's trying to get some damage spread out there so that Palkia can come in a little bit later and strafe for the knockout. However, Landorus will only be doing 30 damage. And while that does put Black Kyurem within the 140 damage for a knockout, she'll also need to find a muscle band that she can attach to the Palkia to deal the extra 40 damage via weakness. She just played down her, was probably her final Fairy Garden. That means she can now retreat for free, but I mean, she's probably only going to get one turn use of it. Going to play a laser to get a little bit more damage onto Black Kyurem and to get it asleep, which means that it can no longer retreat, at least as long as it stays asleep. However, Brandon will still get to flip a coin to see if the Kyurem wakes up between turns. If it doesn't, then Palkia is going to come in and just strafe away. Sarah's going to play a Skyla. Maybe she's searching for that muscle band now? This is probably a turn too soon for that muscle band. At least I think it is. I would have probably waited to play that Skyla until next turn, just in case Brandon is packing a second Tool Scrapper in his deck. However, I'm not the one playing this, and Sarah's going to retreat into Palkia, move the 3 energies up to Palkia, and strafe for 140 between turns, move to 150, and she's probably going to move the Palkia out for the Suicune. Because Suicune is virtually safe, and she doesn't mind if her opponent takes 1 prize card. Now we go back to Brandon's turn. He flips to see if he's awake. It looks like he rolled a Tails, and his Black Kyurem is still asleep. Going to play a Superior Energy Retrieval, discard 2 cards from his hand to get back 4 basic energy cards. He's probably going to get back 1 electric and 3 waters, because he needs to attack with the benched baby Kyurem. There's the electric energy from his hand. Needs to attach. There we go. There's some water energies coming down. He's going to rush in with Keldeo. At some point, he's going to rush in with Keldeo. First, he's going to play that Professor Juniper. Discard his hand, draw 7. Simple card as you get, but still one of the most powerful supporter cards in the format. Heavy Ball will allow him to search out a Blastoise, which he's probably going to rare candy immediately. Then he's going to rush in, retreat into the Black Kyurem, and knock out the Suicune. Tool Scrapper is the muscle band. I did think it was a turn too early. Rush in, retreat for 2. Send a regular Black Kyurem. Play a Beach to get rid of Fairy Garden. And then hit for 100 damage, knocking out Suicune, discarding 1 energy, and drawing 1 prize card. Going to take a look at Black Kyurem, see how much damage, how much HP it has. Reading to see what it does. She might not have seen this card before. But really the obvious move right now is to push up the Eviltal, because that thing will easily knock it out.
Masters players, that is time!
Okay, so that's time. It's more than likely that Sarah will not be able to take 6 prizes in her next 2 turns because she's turn 0. Brandon will be turn 1. Sarah will get turn 2, and Brandon will get the final turn of the game. It's very likely Sarah will not be able to take her 6 prize cards before this game is out, and this game will probably end with Brandon's victory. However, we're going to play this out. And she's debating if she has any sort of play at this point, which she probably doesn't. Draw her card for the turn.
Thank you. Tarbell. Got it.
It looks like an Ultra Ball just got played, although I don't know what she's really looking for. And she just realized that she cannot take... Oh, she just used Strafe for 140 damage, knocking out the Black Hero. However, now Brandon is just going to play the Superior, discard 2, pull back the energies he needs, and take his 2 games to nothing win. So Brandon wins. He has a good chance of making it into top 8 after this. Sarah will probably end up with a top 32 finish after this defeat. And that'll still get her a bunch of prizes. Regionals has a ton of prizes, going all the way down to 64th place in the Masters division. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll hope to see you back next time.